A bit of an interesting time for the government this week, in particular on Qantas. How much is this cutting through, I guess, is always the question, because it started from a seemingly pretty small decision, but it was the differing explanations, I think, which led the opposition to chase it. And probably a lot of people have been shaking their heads at some of the high airfares ever since COVID.
Well, I don't think there's ever been a proper answer to the high airfares since COVID. If there has been one, I haven't heard it. All I know is that you've got to pay too much bloody money to get on a plane, and that something has to be done about that, because in this era, plane travel is not something special for the rich. It's become something that everyone expects to be able to do. And I think, in recent times, it's just been getting out of reach of the ordinary person.
Yeah, and look, the problem is, yes, we talk about the international flights, but some of those domestic ones just eye-watering. The Qantas issue, the referendum polling this week, does it feel like choppier waters for Anthony Albanese right now? The toughest time Labor's had since the election, and a pretty important one?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it's all of his own making. So this is something he wanted, and so he's gone after it. But he's gone after it at some personal risk, which is not something that politicians do very often. But Anthony is a conviction politician. And so when he's got a conviction on something, he will go for it, and that's what he's doing here.
Yeah, look, at least he can say he tried. I think it could be interesting as to, if it fails, where the blame goes with the other question, and won't necessarily propel Peter Dutton to great heights if you look at the Teal seats, for example. But anyway, that's by the by. I guess what will matter a lot more to many people, not everyone, but many people, is how the economy's going. We've got you can look at this two ways today. We do have a per capita recession, and that means we're not growing in terms of the economy's not getting bigger per person, to dumb it right down. And that means people are experiencing tough times. But at the same time, we're managing okay considering all these rate rises. What do you think the government will be feeling in terms of how much they're achieving the so-called soft landing?
Well, I think that they'd be reasonably satisfied. We're doing better than most countries in the world, but these are tough times. And in tough times, you aren't able to please everyone. And as long as you understand that and don't try to, I think you can succeed, because you've got to make, in the end, a real virtue of what you're doing. And I think the government's doing a reasonable job of that. I mean, no one can sell anything better than Chalmers. I think he's really good.
He's got a task ahead of him, though. He didn't have his first pick in the end for the Productivity Commission. Look, that won't be one that really reverberates through the community, let's be honest. But that is a huge issue, productivity. I'm not sure Labor's spoken about how willing they are to really tackle it, because at the same time, businesses will say that there's more red tape that's coming into play via industrial relations changes.
Yeah, well, I think you'd find what Labor's trying to do is duck the issue. If it's not favouring you, then you don't want to talk about it. You talk about everything else, and that's what Labor's doing at the moment. It's hiding on that issue because it hasn't found any solutions.
Richo, great to get your thoughts. We'll talk again next week. Thank you.